Good morning, Mr. Bird. My name is Dr. Daniel Loomis. How are you this morning?
Splendid. Wait. Doc, you sound kind of different.
What? What are you talking about? I'm the same person I've always been.
Sorry. Yeah, you just sound a little different to me. So what can I do for you, Doc?
I'm here because I want to help clear your name, to help people understand that he is
Look, Doc.
real.
I've been here for years. Accused of murdering people that I don't even know. Wait a minute. Does this seem familiar to you? Hey, what is going on, my specialist? SPC here, and welcome back to the Halloween review series. So guys, we have now entered a new era of the franchise. We are now here in the Rob Zombie era of the franchise. Now, I gotta say, when I originally watched at least the first Halloween, at that point in time, I did really like it, but obviously, of course, as time goes on, everybody starts to get different tastes in films. And this is definitely one of them. This is a film that I didn't hold in super high regards to the original Halloween, but this film definitely is, we'll just say, interesting. So I guess, guys, I don't really have much of a story for this one, so I guess we're just going to get into the review. Let's talk about the things that I like about Rob Zombie's Halloween. And the first thing I gotta say that I actually really like about this film is the way it is shot. It's always been something that I've felt pretty positive about with Rob Zombie, is while there are problems with his films, and again, we're obviously going to get into the problems here in a little bit, but he can direct a film. He knows how to pick his shots. He knows how to angle the camera to make things super effective. One of the best ones I can describe, especially when it comes to this film, is when Michael is actually wearing the William Shatner mask while he's a kid, and he's walking down the hall after Judith. That is always a scene that has stuck with me when it comes to this film, because it's just the way it's shot. You have, again, the blackest eyes. The way the mask is just shot in the light and the darkness always looks really good. So that's always one thing I can always say I like and really appreciate about Rob Zombie with his directing. Next up, I like the different version of the Halloween score we get. This is by a guy named Tyler Bates. I don't know much about him. All I know is the stuff he has done here. In this film, at least. I don't know what else he has composed, but I like the newer version of the Halloween score. It's a lot more creepy. It kind of fits the tone of this film. And not only that, but also, again, another thing you can always say about watching a Rob Zombie movie is you're gonna have some good music. And there is lots of good music in this. You have Blue Oyster Cult, you have Nazareth, you have the Halloween score, you get some Kiss in there too. You're always going to get a good score and a good soundtrack by Rob Zombie. Another huge positive I can say, and it's been something I have not been able to actually say full on that I have liked in any of these films in quite a while, but Tyler Mane as Michael Myers. This guy is brutal. This guy is intimidating. And I'm going to say it. This guy is terrifying. This is easily one of the scariest portrayals of Michael Myers in this whole franchise. Just on his brutality and his strength alone. It's always been something that also has gotten to me when I've watched the Rob Zombie films, is this version of Michael Myers. The mask actually looks pretty decent too, and I kind of like the tattered, dark coveralls that he takes from Joe Grizzly. Another huge positive you can say about Rob Zombie, not only just his directing, not only just his score and his soundtrack, but man, this guy can cast a film. Some people not so well, but you get the return of Danielle Harris to the franchise for the first time since Halloween 5. And here she is playing Annie Brackett. And I'm sorry to say it, she is 10 times better of an Annie Brackett than Nancy Kyes is. No disrespect to Nancy Kyes, obviously she did, solidify herself as the character of Annie, but I just feel Danielle does a lot better of a job as the character. You also get the awesome portrayal of Sheriff Brackett by the awesome voice of Chucky, Brad Dourif. This is easily the best cast character in these two films. I love the portrayal of this. I'm sorry to also say it, but I think he is a better Sheriff Brackett than Charles Cypher was. I know that's unpopular, but I'm just saying, pointing that out there. You also get Ken Faree, who of course you guys should know by from Dawn of the Dead from 1978, and of course lots of other films, but again, he, in just the small scene he is in, is one of the most iconic scenes in this entire film. Is when Michael goes to that truck stop, goes into that stall, and just beats the holy hell out of Joe Grizzly to take his clothes.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch. I'm gonna cut that mask right off your face.
And for my final positive of Rob Zombie's Halloween is the entire third act. The entire third act is just such a ramped up version of the original 1978 film. And it helps go a lot faster because once you actually get into the asylum part in the second act, it does finally start to pick up. You do kind of start to get into the John Carpenter version of the story, which of course is obviously the part that I appreciate the most about this film. But I like how much more fast-paced it is. I like how much more brutal that this is. It works a little bit better as a third act. Not taking anything away from the 1978 film, because that is still the best film of this entire franchise, best third act of the entire franchise. I will say that till the day I die. But going into this one, if you want something to move a little faster, you want to just get more than just the couple of minor kills you get in the first film, you're definitely going to get it here in Rob Zombie's Halloween. Now, moving on into the things that I am mixed on. And for me, the biggest one in here is got to be Scout Taylor Compton as Laurie Strode. I do think she is a more believable Laurie Strode than the Jamie Lee Curtis version. But the fact that she's hanging out with her two friends who are super over-sexual with everything they talk about, it doesn't work. And she tries to do that too, tries to kind of talk like them, and it doesn't sound genuine to me. Not only that, but when you do start to get into the third act, her consistent screaming is just so unbearable at times. It reminds me a lot of Caroline Williams from Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 when you start to hear more of her screams. Even Carolyn Burns, too, from the original Texas Chainsaw. I understand that you're trying to get the point across that somebody's scared, that somebody is terrified of the situation that you're in. But do you really need to have them scream that much? And the other mix, too, is also another character. If you guys haven't been here for this entire review series, you guys will know that I constantly highly praise the character of Dr. Loomis. And it's one of my mixed in this because I love the character of Dr. Loomis. Again, he is one of my favorite characters of the franchise, one of my favorite movie characters of all time. But in here, he is played very well by the legendary Malcolm McDowell. But the fact that there are just times where he is just basically repeating the lines that have been made legendary by Donald Pleasence, they just don't land as well. When it comes to the stuff in the asylum, he definitely delivers the best part of that performance because you get to see his one-on-one interaction with Michael, and I wish we could have got a lot more of that. Honestly, what I would have loved to have done is get rid of that whole entire first act with everything that happens in the house. Just kind of catch up with Michael right away, just talk about what happened, and have an entire act of Michael and Loomis actually, interacting, actually trying to help Michael understand why he did what he did. So, overall, that's just the biggest mix for me. And speaking of that first act, let's start getting on into the negatives for this film. The entire first act easily is the worst part of this film. I don't hear many people saying that's the best part of the movie, because the terrible dialogue that Rob Zombie writes in his films, it can ruin any sort of momentum that you get when it comes to watching these films. And this one is the biggest prime example. I understand he's trying to show us the terrible childhood that Michael had as to what is making him want to become a killer, why he is doing the things he is doing. But you can do it in such a better way. And as I've already been talking about, of course, the terrible dialogue, all the things that Rob Zombie makes his characters say. I don't know what possesses him to do this. This has been something that a lot of the people have said. I've been one of them as well, that Rob Zombie needs to stop writing his films, because when he puts in this just nasty, disgusting dialogue and the way people say things in here, it doesn't work. It makes you uncomfortable. It makes you not even want to continue to watch the film.
Honey, I have to fucking work tonight. Somebody around here's got to make some money.
I'm all broken up here, bitch. I can't work.
Yeah, and whose fault is that?
Fuck
Oh
you.
my God, you're pathetic.
You know that new waitress over at the Bingo Lounge? She can give me the freaky eye.
Oh, the whore with the big tits hanging down to her knees?
Maybe I'll choke the chicken, purge my snorkel all over them flappy ass tits.
And this is easily the one, as of now. There are still some Rob Zombie films I haven't watched, but this easily, that entire half hour to 45 minutes of this film, is some of the hardest things to go through when it comes to watching one of Rob Zombie's movies. Even two things you get besides his terrible dialogue, you have some of the over-the-top, over-sexual characters, as I've said. The over amount of nudity. I mean, you don't need constant naked girls, constant F-bombs, constant kills of just nasty gore that you can't even half the time stomach to watch. You don't need all of that to make an effective horror film. Again, John Carpenter proved that 30 years prior. He has proved that it works a lot better, just keeping things at a minimum. You didn't need, again, the over-the-top F-bombs, all the naked women, all of that stuff. You don't need that to make a Halloween film. You definitely, just in general, don't need that for a horror film in general. And another negative, too, for me, I honestly have to say, even though I did praise it here a little bit ago, so I guess if you want to consider this a mix, you can, but when you start getting into the third act, it does start to become a little more beat for beat for the original Halloween, because Rob Zombie did not want to even do that. He wanted to just do his own entire story. He didn't want to have to follow the John Carpenter storyline, which I totally respect. If you want to go your own direction, that's totally fine. But it doesn't land as well. I do like, again, I like how it's a little more ramped up, so it makes you a little bit more tense to want to watch it. But there are just so many times that, again, dialogue, characters, all of that stuff is just so hard to watch. And same thing too, I just brought it up, obviously, guys, characters. There's this, the Rob Zombie characters he puts in here. You have the guy at the beginning, the stepdad, who, honestly, he is up there with John Strode to me as one of the worst characters in this entire franchise. The terrible life that Michael has, again, I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to show us why Michael becomes such a psychotic killer. But when you literally only really like one, maybe two people in this household, why would you want to continue watching this? And again, I brought it up earlier too, Laurie's friends, you got Judith, you got her boyfriend, you got all these different characters surrounding this entire cast, and a lot of them are just throwaways. They're not very well developed, they're not very well written. So there's not even a point in half of them even being here. Again, you get a legendary performance by Brad Dourif. He puts on the best performance in this entire series, especially in these next 2 films. Why can't everybody else go to the caliber of that? Even Danielle Harris is putting in a good act. But when you get all these new people, you even get a couple of little cameos from some people. You get Bill Moseley in here, but he doesn't really do a whole lot. So, characters, writing, all that stuff that Rob Zombie is just terrible at. It's just, no, go away. And this isn't really a negative or a positive. I just want to throw this out here to you guys. Watch the theatrical cut. Because when you get to the unrated cut, you do get a lot more of that Rob Zombie dialogue. You get, instead of Michael breaking out the way he does in the theatrical cut, you get a rape scene where Michael is like an anti-hero for a couple of seconds. So, just, all I will say, watch the theatrical cut of this film, because you're going to get a little bit more out of it, but it's not going to be a whole lot. So, overall, you guys, I mean, this film is just such a mixed bag for me, because there are things, I will always say it, that Rob Zombie does so good, so right, but it's just his writing, the way he writes his characters, the things he has his characters say. It's what always is going to ruin a film of his for me, unfortunately. So, unfortunately for me, I am going to have to give Rob Zombie's Halloween a 2.5 out of 5. Guys, that is going to do it for this review of Rob Zombie's Halloween. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys go down below in the comments section. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Rob Zombie's Halloween. Also, too, if you guys are new here, please consider clicking that subscribe button, as I'm hoping to grow this channel a lot more. And, of course, obviously, go back. Make sure you guys watch the rest of the Halloween review series, as we, of course, are leading up to Halloween Ends, which is going to be here before we know it. So, with that being said, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.